Hello everyone! Welcome to the Psychradia's YouTube channel, the channel for all things speculative biology and evolution. This video is the first in a series about the fictional planet of Psychradia, an icy planet to become host to some of the strangest aliens in the galaxy. Before we look into the first inhabitants of Psychradia, we must set the scene. In the far galaxy of Etheria, there exist 5 very interesting planets that will be the focus of many of my upcoming series. Going in order from the center of the solar system, we start with the star. Galaxius, the all-providing star, is very similar to our star, Sol. It is a K-type that is only slightly larger than our Sun, though this means it will not last as long as our star. Galaxius is only around 10% larger than our Sun, meaning that it will not live as long but is hotter, meaning the habitable zone stretches further than in our solar system. The planet closest to Galaxius is Aten. Aten is a small rocky planet which is only slightly larger than our Moon. Its surface is incredibly hot, making it uninhabitable to any life as we know it. It has no moons as it is too small to attract any other space rocks. Aten is slightly smaller than Mercury, though it is rich with precious minerals that may make it perfect for mining for a future sapient species. Second closest to the star is Caldearis, the hothouse world. It is the first planet in Galaxius's habitable zone but has no life as of yet. Caldearis is slightly larger than Earth, with a large ocean with hundreds of small island continents. It has 3 moons, which gives it larger tides than most other ocean-bearing planets, meaning that islands can grow in size substantially over the course of the day. Caldearis is a hothouse planet with average temperatures much higher than Earth due to the increased amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Next in order is Psychradia, the focus of this series. Psychradia is a habitable planet that is slightly smaller than Earth with 1 moon, much like us. This planet is quite cold, having 2 large ice caps at both poles of the planet which take up nearly a quarter of the planet combined. As of now, it has 2 continents which are barren and rocky with a large mountain range on each. Psychradia is a slightly smaller planet than Earth, being around 15% smaller, so gravity is slightly stronger, though this won't be a huge detriment for life growing to large sizes. As Psychradia is the focus of this series, we'll be going into more detail about the planet itself than the others in its solar system. An interesting note about this planet is that its axial tilt is much smaller than that of Earth, being only around 15 degrees. This means that seasons will be less varied. Psychradia's atmosphere seems similar to Earth's, but it has a much lower level of carbon dioxide and it has more oxygen, which contributes to the planet's cold temperatures. In this video, I will not go into the continents of Psychradia as they are not very important to life just yet. The second last planet is Mundus, the first gas planet and the last in Galaxius's habitable zone. It is a large grey gas giant, getting its color due to its carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere being totally unbreathable for any Earth life. Mundus has 26 moons ranging in size from small rocks to medium-sized planets. This gas giant is quite large, being a similar size to Neptune in our solar system, being the second largest planet in the Galaxian system. Tachirion is one of the largest of Mundus's moon, and it is an ice planet with a large ocean underneath its 1-kilometer thick ice sheet. It may be important in the future. The last planet we will be looking at today is Otiro, the great gas giant. It is blue due to its methane-rich atmosphere. It has over 80 moons which are often ripped too close to it and are therefore shredded to pieces. Over time this forms Otiro's rings. This gargantuan planet is bigger than Jupiter, and it likely would have been the star system star if it was any larger. Due to Otiro's sheer size, almost any meteorites that enter the Galaxian system will be attracted to it and ripped into pieces or become a new moon. That is it for the planets of the Galaxian star system. We can now get back to Psychradia and finally look into the first alien lifeforms in the era known as the Primordium. If you were to dive into the early Psychradian oceans, you would, first of all, notice that it is very cold, but then you would probably realize how desolate it is. No large shoals of fish or huge whales, nothing you can recognize as life seems to be present. But if you look a little closer, you will realize that there is a thick layer of algae-like organisms, making it very hard to swim close to the surface. This algae-like plant is Chrysophyton, the most abundant living organism of this era. You may notice that unlike Earth plants, these photosynthesizers are an orange color which allows them to take in as much light as possible from their star Galaxius in particular. Much like the many plants on Earth, Chrysophyton reproduces asexually in order to reproduce as fast as possible, although this will not last forever as it is not very efficient. Due to these early organisms using photosynthesis, they will produce lots of oxygen in the early stages of the Primordium, allowing for animals to survive, whilst also making the planet colder. These early plants will define the early stage of Psychradian history, feeding lineages of alien organisms for millennia to come. As you continue to swim through Psychradia's frigid oceans, you may come across what looks to be a cloud of light blue dust, but in reality, if you look a little closer, you would realize this cloud is made of a swarm of tiny planktonic organisms that feed on anything they can filter into their mouths. These planktonic lifeforms are known as the Psychradia and are very important to the future of Psychradia. Much like their algae-adjacent food, these early animals reproduce asexually by splitting into thirds. As Psychradia are made of 3 squishy segments, they can eject their 2 side parts, allowing them to form into 3 individuals by regrowing lost segments. Across their body they have many thin hairs which allows them to sense things around them, which currently is only really the Chrysophyton, which is their food, and other individuals of their species. Now, although Psychradia and Chrysophyton are the first organisms of note in Psychradian history, we will look at some of their early descendants. As we travel a few million years into the future of Psychradia, you may notice thick mats of orange across the seafloor. This is the only descendant of the Chrysophyton that we will look at in this video, is a moss-like plant that grows across the ocean floor. This is the Ammosphyton, a very prolific plant that will coat the seafloor during the Primordium era. Unlike their ancestors, which were simple mats of individual cells that float randomly across the ocean surface, Ammosphyton grows as a single organism which spreads outwards using their newly evolved roots, which help them spread as well as keeping them in the sediment and collecting nutrients. They still reproduce asexually, but in a slightly different way. Ammosphyton will send out roots which sprout out of the ground and grow into another nearly identical individual, though it is fully connected to its mother plant. As you study the Ammosphyton growing across the seafloor, you may spot something quite amazing for this time period, something moving on the seafloor. These are one of the earliest descendants of the Psychradia, have specialized into a benthic niche, living on the seafloor. These are the Podozoan. They are very common, spreading slowly across the ocean floor, feeding on detritus such as decaying organisms, Ammosphyton, marine snow, and even smaller podozoans by pulling it into their mouths using their hair-like structures. These interesting animals are the first truly motile organisms, being able to move across the seafloor by pushing across the sediment using a large muscular region on each of their segments underside. Podozoans have elongated their hair-like structures around the sides, making it easier for them to feel on the ocean floor around them to locate food fast, though it takes them a lot of energy to turn to a different direction. They reproduce by releasing gametes into the water which resemble their Psychradia ancestors and drift through the water until they sink to the seafloor. You decide to swim up from the seafloor to see if there are any changes in the pelagic environment since you last studied them, and what you come across initially seems like a familiar sort of jellyfish, but you know this cannot be true as it is hundreds of light years away from Earth. This is the final organism of this video, another descendant of the Psychradia that has evolved an earth jellyfish-like niche. This familiar-looking alien is the Pelagozoan. Similar to their ancestors, they simply float through the water, but to collect food they have many long tentacle-like structures which they grasp small prey with, such as Psychradia and smaller Pelagozoan, to feed into their mouths so they can eat. Members of this clade can grow to become the largest individual organisms alive on Psychradia so far, though this is only around 10 centimeters. Their hair has not only formed into tentacles but also a more thick layer of insulating structures, making it easier to sense nearby organisms as well as helping them in colder environments, such as deep seas and polar oceans. Pelagozoans reproduce by their 2 largest tentacles, which as well as grasping prey serve as reproductive organs, releasing gametes into the water through holes in the tentacle when they sense they are near other individuals. This brings us to the ends of the first episode in this series about the biological history of the far-off planet of Psychradia. In the next video we will look into the first boom of diversification with the evolution of predation, armor, and new forms of specialization. And just remember, in this series we will not be able to look at every individual species that has ever lived on Psychradia, but instead we will explore the major clades that define its biological history. Thanks for watching. If you want to help out with this project by contributing fan art, creating new clades, getting spoilers for the next episodes, or just talking about all things speculative biology, you should consider joining the Discord, link in the comments or description. I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe to be notified when the next episode releases and to support me.